The night my husband confessed his infidelity in front of our family. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My husband raised his glass and calmly announced he'd been cheating on me. For a second, I thought he was making a sick joke. The dining room went quiet except for the ceiling fan humming and my father's fork clinking against his plate. Mark's parents, my younger sister Nora, and his mother Denise all stared at him like someone had hit pause on reality. My face started burning, but my hands went completely numb. "We agreed we'd be honest tonight," Mark said, not looking at me. "I've made mistakes in our marriage. I've been unfaithful." The words sliced through the air. Unfaithful. Not cheated, not slept with someone else. Unfaithful. Like he was reading from a script his therapist had given him. Only, as far as I knew, he didn't have a therapist. "Honey, what are you saying?" Denise's voice was small, terrified of the scandal more than the pain. I stared at his profile. I knew that jawline, those eyelashes, the nervous tick of his thumb rubbing his ring. But I didn't know this man. "Mark," I whispered, "look at me." He wouldn't. He looked at our families instead, as if they were a jury and I was some side character in his redemption arc. "It was a rough time," he continued. "I was stressed. I made a stupid, one-time mistake. I wanted you all to hear it from me before it came out some other way." My stomach dropped. Before it came out some other way. What other way? Who else knew? I could feel every eye on my face, waiting to see if I would scream, cry, forgive, implode. In that moment, I realized this wasn't about my feelings. It was about his image. I set my wine glass down carefully because my hands were shaking. "One time," I asked, my voice hoarse. "You're saying it was one time, Mark?" He flinched at my tone, just for a second, and something in that tiny twitch told me he was already lying. What he called a mistake sounded like the beginning of something bigger. "If you'd asked me a year earlier, I would have told you Mark was the safest choice I'd ever made. We met at a friend's barbecue when I was 26, sunburned and holding a paper plate full of chips, and he made some dumb joke about stealing my carbs. I rolled my eyes, but he remembered my name, and he texted when he said he would. That alone felt like a miracle back then. He was steady, funny in a dad jokes way, and my parents liked that he worked in finance. "You finally found a responsible one," my mom said, hugging him at Christmas. I was the dependable daughter, the one with the modest job at the clinic and the carefully managed savings account. Mark was the upgrade to my life, the missing piece that made everyone exhale. From the start, he had opinions about little things that somehow all involved me bending. He wanted me to move into his condo because it made more financial sense than us finding a new place together. He thought my old car was embarrassing and insisted we trade it in for something newer under his name. "It's just easier," he said. "You trust me, right?" I did. Of course I did. That's what you're supposed to do when you're building a life with someone, right? The first time I swallowed something that hurt, we were engaged. I told him I felt uneasy that Denise had basically planned our wedding without asking me my preferences. Mark laughed, kissed my forehead, and said, "Babe, my mom just wants it to be perfect. Don't dramatize everything." I let it go, like I let so many things go. I told myself I was being oversensitive. A few weeks before the dinner, I remember telling him I felt distant from him, like I was living with a polite stranger. "You're just stressed, Hanna," he said, barely glancing up from his phone. "Don't start a fight over nothing." Only later would I realize that nothing was already every warning I needed. The first red flag was his phone, obviously. It's always the phone. Mark wasn't a big texter when we first started dating. If anything, I had to remind him to answer. But about a year ago, I noticed he started keeping his phone face down on the table. The vibration sound, sharp, insistent, became a constant background noise in our apartment. "Work," he'd say, shrugging, silencing another notification. I remember one night clearly because it was so ordinary. I came home from a long day at the clinic, my scrubs smelling like antiseptic and coffee, and found him on the couch, laptop open, phone in hand. He jumped when I walked in. "Wow, guilty much?" I teased, tossing my bag down. "You look like I caught you watching something weird." He laughed too loudly. "Please, my search history is way more boring than that," he said, snapping his laptop shut. His phone lit up on the coffee table, and I watched him flick his eyes down, then quickly flip it over. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just work," he repeated, getting up to kiss my cheek, steering me toward the kitchen. I ordered takeout. You look tired this morning. It should have been sweet. Instead, it felt like being patted on the head and redirected. Then came the late meetings. We're pushing for a big promotion, he said. I'll be home late for a while. The first week, I believed him. The second week, I believed him, but with an ache in my stomach. By the third, I'd memorized the sound of the elevator at 11:47 p.m. when he'd quietly unlock the door, smelling faintly of expensive cologne and some perfume I couldn't place. I told myself it was a client's scent from a handshake, a crowded bar, an overenthusiastic coworker. You can explain away anything if you're scared enough of the alternative. Then there was the Zara bag in the trunk. Lingerie, definitely not my size. No receipt. No explanation. I didn't confront him right away about the lingerie. I wish I had. Instead, I folded the little scrap of black lace back into the Zara bag and put it exactly where I found it in the trunk, like I was some forensic investigator preserving a crime scene. 2 days later, I couldn't hold it in. He was making coffee, humming to some playlist he'd put on, moving around our kitchen like nothing in the world was wrong. "Mark," I said, leaning against the counter. "Can I ask you something without you getting defensive?" His shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. "That's a great way to start a calm conversation," he said, half joking. "I found a lingerie set in your trunk," I said. "It's not my size." "Whose is it?" The spoon slipped from his hand into the sink with a loud clang. He turned around slowly, face pale. "You went through my car?" "I grabbed the groceries you left in there." I shot back. "That's not an answer." He exhaled hard, eyes narrowing. "It's for a coworker," he said. "We all pitched in for a bachelorette party. Do you seriously think I'm stupid enough to leave evidence if I were cheating?" The way he said stupid made me feel childish, like I'd accused him of stealing candy. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. "Why hide it?" "Because I knew you'd overreact like this," he snapped. "You've been paranoid lately, Hanna. It's exhausting. I'm working my ass off, and instead of support, I get interrogations." My throat tightened. I asked one question. He rubbed his forehead like he had a migraine. "Drop it, okay? Please. I'm tired." He walked out of the kitchen, leaving his coffee half-made. I stood there, heart pounding, wondering if I'd just ruined something or if it was already ruined and I was finally seeing it. If you've ever been gaslit, you know how quickly your reality starts to feel negotiable. After that, I tried to be chill. That's the word Nora used when I vented to her over wine in my apartment a week later. "You're not crazy," she said, tucking her legs under her. "But he's definitely making you feel like you are." Classic. I laughed weakly. "So what do? Start sniffing his shirts? Hire a private detective?" "Or," she said, tilting her head, "you remember you're not lucky just to be chosen. You're allowed to have standards." Denise had different advice when she called out of the blue. "Marriage is hard, sweetheart," she said, her voice honey-sweet and barbed underneath. "You know how men are under pressure. Mark works so hard. Try not to nitpick. Men just need respect to thrive." It wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. Not once did she ask if I felt supported, or safe, or loved. It was all about his burden, his image, his needs. "We're thinking about grandchildren, you know," she added lightly. "We're not getting any younger." My uterus had apparently become a group project no one asked my opinion on. At dinner with my parents, my mom squeezed my hand and asked, "Everything okay with you too? You look tired, hon." My dad stayed quiet, stabbing his steak a little too hard. "We're fine," I lied, feeling Mark's eyes burning the side of my face. "Just busy." On the way home, in the car, Mark said, "Don't drag our private stuff into family drama, okay? It's childish." "Our private stuff?" I echoed. "You mean my feelings?" He sighed loudly, turning up the radio. Here we go again. The message from every angle was clear. Keep the peace, keep quiet, keep him comfortable. The invitation came as a group text, a cheerful message from Mark in the family chat with too many emojis. "Family dinner at our place next Saturday. Big news to share." My stomach dropped the second I read it. We didn't have big news. Not that I knew of, anyway. I turned to him on the couch. "What big news?" I asked. He shrugged, eyes glued to the game. "Relax, it's just dinner. Thought it'd be nice to get everyone together. We never host." "That's not what you wrote," I said, holding up my phone. "Big news to share." "What are you talking about, Mark?" He hesitated, then forced a smile that didn't touch his eyes. I'm thinking of moving into a different department at work, he said. Could be a promotion. I just want to get everyone's blessing, you know? Make it a celebration. It sounded rehearsed, like he'd picked the answer from a list. The week leading up to the dinner, he was jittery, overly helpful. He deep-cleaned the apartment, arranged flowers, triple-checked the oven temperature, bought my dad's favorite bourbon and Denise's preferred wine. He even took the day off work to prep. Part of me wanted to believe he was making an effort. The other part felt like we were staging a play. On the day itself, little things went wrong. The smoke alarm screamed when he opened the oven door. The fancy candle he'd bought cracked down the middle as it burned. My phone glitched and deleted the playlist I'd spent hours curating. Maybe we should reschedule, I joked weakly, staring at the dead Bluetooth speaker. He shook his head fast. No, he said, too sharply. It has to be tonight. Has to be. Not wants to be. Not, I'm excited. The night of the dinner, the apartment smelled like rosemary chicken and citrus cleaner. Candles flickered on the table, the nice plates we never used lined up like soldiers. I wore a navy dress Mark said he liked because it made me look put together. I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, trying to smooth the anxiety off my face. Guests arrived in waves. Denise floated in first, perfumed and polished, air-kissing my cheeks. Oh, this is lovely, Hanna, she said, scanning the room like a critic, already moving the napkins half an inch. My parents followed, my mom with a homemade pie, my dad with a careful smile. Nora came last, kicking off her boots, hugging me tightly. You okay? She whispered. Fine, I lied again. Just nervous. For the first hour, it was normal. Too normal. We ate appetizers, laughed about my dad's terrible high school mustache, listened to Denise tell the same story about Mark winning a spelling bee for the 1,000th time. Mark kept topping off everyone's glasses. He barely touched his own. At one point, I caught him staring at me across the table with this strange mix of pity and determination. It made my skin crawl. When we sat down for the main course, he cleared his throat. The sound cut through the conversation like a knife. My fork froze midway to my mouth. I asked you all here because I need to say something, he began. His voice wobbled, then smoothed out, like he'd practiced. I haven't been honest in my marriage, and Hanna deserves the truth. I could feel my heart beating in my ears. He lifted his glass, like a man giving a toast. I've been unfaithful, he said. It was a mistake, and I am so sorry. The room erupted. My mom gasping, Nora swearing under her breath, Denise whisper shouting his name. The first thing I noticed was how quickly he framed it as a story about his courage. I didn't want to keep lying, he said, voice shaking just enough. I needed to own up to what I did. I love Hanna. I want to heal this. I hope you all can support us. Support us. Not me. Us. As if we were co-authors of his betrayal. Who is she? Nora asked, leaning forward, eyes blazing. How long? It doesn't matter who, Mark said quickly. It was one time, a few months ago. I was drunk, stressed, a few months. I cut in, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. You told me 3 weeks ago you were too tired to have sex. Which is it, Mark? He flinched. Denise jumped in like a bodyguard. Hanna, sweetheart, this isn't the time. When is the time? I snapped. You all found out before I did, apparently. My father's jaw clenched. Did you? He asked quietly, looking at Mark. Did anyone else know about this before tonight? Mark hesitated. It was small, a microsecond pause, but I see it now like a slow-motion replay. His eyes flicked to Denise's face and back again. No, he said. No one knew. I just couldn't live with the guilt anymore. My mom started crying. Oh, Mark, she said, because my family loves strays and project men. Why would you risk what you have with Hanna? It meant nothing, he insisted. It was just a stupid fling. It's over. I'm telling you this because I want to rebuild. Where did it happen? I asked, my voice oddly calm. When? He swallowed. A work trip. Hotel in Chicago. It's done. From the corner of my eye, I saw Denise's hand tighten around her wine glass, knuckles white, her gaze fixed very firmly on the tablecloth. I didn't remember saying goodbye. I just remember the front door closing and the sudden silence after everyone left, the apartment still smelling like food I couldn't imagine stomaching. Mark hovered near the kitchen, wringing his hands. Hanna, please. Don't, I said. My voice sounded dead. Don't say anything else right now. I grabbed my keys and phone and left. I didn't know where I was going until I was halfway to Nora's apartment. When she opened the door, I burst into tears so hard my ribs hurt. She wrapped me in a blanket and shoved a mug of tea into my hands. "Start from the beginning," she said, "and don't leave anything out." Talking through it made the holes in his story bigger. The one time in Chicago didn't match the lingerie, the late nights, the new cologne. You don't go from faithful husband to full-body affair in one drunken night, Nora said flatly. "That's not how this works." "You think it's been going on longer?" I asked, even though my body already knew the answer. "I think he's telling the smallest version he thinks you'll swallow," she replied. That night, while she snored lightly on the couch, I sat on the floor with my laptop. I logged into our phone plan account, something I'd never bothered to check before. My hands shook as I scrolled. The pattern was obvious once I saw it. Multiple calls and texts to an unknown number, clustered late at night and during his work trips. The number went back at least 8 months, longer than the few months he'd claimed. Screenshots piled up on my desktop like tiny pieces of my life shattering into JPGs. The unknown number belonged to a woman named Claire. I found that out by plugging it into Facebook first, then Instagram, where her profile picture showed her at some rooftop bar, laughing into the camera. Mutual friends with Mark's coworker. A tagged photo with the caption, "Best team ever," and Mark in the background, arm draped casually over her chair. I felt sick. I scrolled further and stopped cold at a photo from 3 months ago. Chicago skyline at night. 2 wine glasses on a hotel balcony table. The caption read, "Sometimes the best nights are the ones that don't feel allowed." The timestamp lined up almost exactly with one of his business trips. I printed out the phone records, the screenshots, the posts. It felt ridiculous, like prepping evidence for a trial in a courtroom that was just my own broken heart. The next day, I went back to the apartment. Mark was pacing, his eyes red. "Hanna, thank God," he said. "I've been going crazy. We need to talk, I held up the stack of papers. "How long have you been sleeping with Claire?" The color drained from his face. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't even pretend not to know. "It wasn't," he started, then stopped. "Hanna, please. Can we talk about this with Dr. Patel? I set up an appointment for us. We can fix this." I repeated. "You lied to my face. To our families. You stood there and acted like a hero for confessing when you were still lying." "Mark, how many people knew?" His eyes darted to the side. "No one," he whispered. I followed his gaze to the framed photo of him and Denise at his firm's charity gala, arms linked, smiling like a political campaign poster. I didn't confront Denise right away. I wanted to be sure. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into Mark's laptop while he was in the shower. His email was a mess, but a search for Claire's name pulled up dozens of messages, work-related at first, then gradually more personal. The ones that made my hands go ice-cold weren't from Claire, they were from his mom. Subject: your situation. From Denise. To Mark: just be careful, sweetheart. Hanna is sensitive. You don't want to humiliate her. Sort it out quietly before anyone finds out. Another, dated about a month before the dinner. I still think you should consider counseling before blowing up your marriage. Affairs happen. Keep things discreet and protect your career. My vision blurred. She knew. She knew and decided the priority was not my dignity, or my health, or even Mark's soul. It was his career and the family reputation. That evening, I asked her to meet me at a cafe near her house. She arrived in a beige coat, pearls on, like she was attending a brunch instead of a confrontation. "Hanna, dear, you look exhausted," she said, leaning in to air kiss me. "This whole thing has been so stressful for all of us." "For all of us," I repeated. "Must be hard, managing your son's adultery schedule." Her smile froze. "Excuse me." I slid my phone across the table with the emails pulled up. "How long have you known Denise?" I asked. "How long have you been helping him keep it quiet?" She stared at the screen, then at me, then back again. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You hacked my email," she whispered, scandalized, like that was the core sin here. "I read messages on my husband's laptop," I said. "Because my husband is cheating on me and my mother-in-law is coaching him on damage control. Answer the question." She inhaled sharply, then straightened her shoulders. "I didn't coach him," she said. "I advised him. Marriage is complicated, Hanna. Men stray. It doesn't have to mean anything if you don't let it." "You knew," I repeated. My voice was shaking now, You knew he was risking my health, our future, everything, and your concern was his career? My concern, she said coolly, was that you would throw away a perfectly good marriage over a stupid mistake. You're 31. Starting over isn't easy. I was trying to protect you from yourself. It was such a twist of logic I almost laughed. Protect me by keeping me in the dark? I asked. Do you have any idea how condescending that is? She leaned forward, eyes hard. You think there's some fairy tale out there where men never mess up? Grow up, Hanna. Real women know when to look the other way for the greater good. Real women. Greater good. The words rattled around my skull like bullets. What about my greater good? I asked quietly. What about my right to choose whether I want this life with full information? She shook her head, pitying. You're emotional. You'll calm down. Go to counseling. Forgive him. Have a baby. In 10 years, this will be a funny story at parties. In 10 years, I thought, I could either be dead inside or finally free. The appointment with Dr. Patel was supposed to be about saving the marriage, at least according to Mark. For me, it was about seeing clearly. Our therapist's office was warm and neutral, the walls lined with tasteful art that tried to convince you everything could be fixed. Mark held my hand in the waiting room like we were a team facing a shared problem instead of one he'd created. Please don't ambush me in there, he whispered. We need to show we're both willing. I pulled my hand back. I'm willing to be honest, I said. That's all. Dr. Patel listened as we each told our version. Mark emphasized stress, childhood wounds, the disconnect he'd been feeling. I talked about the phone, the lingerie, the public confession, the emails with his mother. When I mentioned Denise, he winced. My mom was just trying to help, he said. She didn't mean. She meant exactly what she wrote. I cut in. Dr. Patel held up a hand. Hanna, she said gently, what do you want, separate from what Mark and his mother want? If you imagine 3 years from now, what outcome feels like peace? The answer rose up before I could censor it. I want to not flinch when my phone vibrates, I said. I want to know that the person I'm sharing a bed with isn't secretly rewriting the story of our life with someone else. I want to stop feeling like I'm begging for basic respect. Mark's eyes filled with tears. So that's it, he demanded. You're just going to throw us away? Over what? Some texts and one affair. One affair we know of, I said. 8 months minimum that I can prove. Your mom helping you hide it. Standing up in front of my parents to half confess only because you were scared it would come out anyway. He looked at Dr. Patel, desperate. Tell her not to make a permanent decision when she's emotional, he pleaded. She looked at me instead. You're allowed to make decisions to protect yourself, even if other people don't like them, she said quietly. The next steps felt less like choices and more like survival. I asked Mark to leave the apartment for a while. He moved into a corporate rental temporarily, taking half his clothes and all of his favorite gadgets. The silence he left behind was deafening at first, then slowly, mercifully, peaceful. I met with a lawyer from a recommendation Nora found. We talked about separation, asset division, and what would happen if we divorced. You're not trapped, the lawyer said. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I changed the passwords on everything, streaming accounts, banking apps, even my Spotify. It felt petty and necessary at the same time. I got tested for STDs, my hands shaking so badly when I filled out the forms that the nurse gently asked if I wanted water. At work, I functioned on autopilot. I smiled at patients, filled out charts, and then hid in the bathroom to cry during my breaks. My coworkers pretended not to notice the puffiness around my eyes. People are kinder than we give them credit for. Nora came over often, bringing food, making me laugh with dark jokes about accidentally keying Mark's car. My parents checked in daily. Denise sent long texts about forgiveness and unity that I stopped reading. In therapy alone, I started using the word divorce out loud. It felt like testing the temperature of a pool with my toe, terrifying at first, then less shocking each time. Hanna, Dr. Patel said in one session, what are your non-negotiables now? What would you never again trade away for the illusion of stability? The list surprised me with how simple it was. Honesty, safety, autonomy over my own life. In the end, the decision came quietly. I was sitting at our kitchen table, my kitchen table now, surrounded by potted herbs Nora insisted I needed, so something in here is thriving. The late afternoon light made everything soft. My phone buzzed with yet another message from Mark. Photos of us in happier times, long paragraphs about memories, promises to change. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I put the phone face down and picked up the pen. The separation papers weren't dramatic, just dense and full of legalese. Signing them didn't feel like ending a fairy tale. It felt like turning off a fire alarm that had been blaring for months. When we met to exchange signatures, Mark looked smaller somehow. "Are you really sure?" he asked, voice breaking. "We could still fix this, Hanna." "Maybe you could fix you," I said softly. "But I can't stay married to the man who humiliated me and lied to me and expected me to help him keep it pretty. I'd be teaching myself that my pain doesn't matter." He swallowed and nodded, tears filling his eyes. For a moment, I almost wavered. Then I remembered Zara bags, hotel photos, emails, and my mother-in-law calling betrayal a funny story someday. After, I walked to the park near our apartment and sat on a bench, the crisp air stinging my cheeks. A little girl zoomed past on a scooter, her dad jogging behind her, laughing. Life went on, unaware that my world had shifted on its axis. I'm not going to pretend I felt instantly free. Grief and relief are messy roommates. But that night, I slept 8 hours straight for the first time in months. If you're reading this and wondering whether you're overreacting to your own red flags, I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me sooner. Peace is not supposed to feel like constantly explaining why you're hurt. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk away before you recognize yourself less than the person who betrayed you.